I never imagined my sister would slap me so hard that the entire departure lounge at JFK's Terminal 5 would go dead silent. The hum of conversation, the rhythmic squeak of carry-on wheels, the distant drone of news anchors on the overhead TVs, it all vanished in a single, violent second. One moment, I was standing there, holding 4 navy blue passports fanned out in my hand like a winning poker hand, squinting at the gate monitor to double-check if our flight to Mail had been delayed. The next moment, a flash of manicured nails cut through the air, and a sound like a cracking whip exploded against my left cheek. The force of it stumbled me backward. My heels caught on the edge of the plush airport carpet, and I barely caught myself on the cold metal armrest of a waiting area chair. The sting wasn't just on my skin, it vibrated through my teeth, a hot, throbbing pulse that instantly brought tears to my eyes. But the silence was worse. It was the kind of heavy, suffocating silence where you can hear the air conditioning vents rattling. 200 heads turned. I saw a teenage girl lower her bubble tea, her mouth slightly open. I saw a businessman over the top of his laptop, his eyebrows raised in sheer disbelief. And then, the phones went up. That distinct, vertical posture of strangers sensing a viral moment, capturing my humiliation in 4K resolution. Before I could even breathe, before I could process the metallic taste of blood where my tooth had cut my inner cheek, my parents were there. But they didn't rush to me. They didn't check the red handprint blooming on my pale skin. They rushed to her. "Bella, honey, breathe. Just breathe." My mother cried out, her voice shrill with a panic that belonged to a tragedy, not an assault her daughter had just committed. She wrapped her arms around Bella, who was standing there in her oversized designer sunglasses, fake, of course, and a pink velour tracksuit, heaving as if she were the one who had just been struck. My father stepped between us, his back to me, creating a wall of protection around the aggressor. He turned his head slightly, glaring at me with that familiar, exhausted disappointment that I had memorized over 29 years. "What did you say to her, Claire? Why do you always have to provoke her right before a big event?" I opened my mouth, but the words died in my throat. The injustice of it felt physical, like a stone swallowed whole. Provoke her? I hadn't said a word. I had been checking the gate number because Bella had been complaining that the walk was too long for her heels. 5 minutes prior, she had been filming a "Get Ready With Me for the Maldives" TikTok in the middle of the walkway, blocking traffic, and I had simply asked her to move her ring light so an elderly couple could pass. That was it. That was the crime. I didn't, I stammered, my hand instinctively rising to cup my burning cheek. I was just holding the passports. "She's lying!" Bella shrieked, burying her face into Mom's shoulder, her voice muffled but perfectly audible to the gathering crowd. She said, "I didn't deserve this trip." She said, "I'm just a leech." "She's been whispering it to me all morning, Mom. She's trying to ruin my content. She's trying to ruin my vibe." It was a lie so audacious, so completely detached from reality, that it almost felt impressive. But what crushed me wasn't the lie. It was the immediate, seamless acceptance of it. My mother stroked Bella's hair extensions, cooing soft reassurances. "Shh, ignore her. She's just jealous, baby. She's always been jealous of your spirit." My name is Claire Bennett. I am a senior accountant at a top-tier firm in Manhattan. My life is built on ledgers, audits, and absolute truths. In my world, numbers don't lie, columns must balance. People describe me as the stable one, the boring one, the one who brings the Tupperware to the potluck and remembers to renew the car insurance. But standing there in JFK, watching my family coddle the sister who just physically assaulted me, I realized that my reputation wasn't a badge of honor. It was a cage. It was a role I had been cast in without an audition. The emotional punching bag. The walking ATM. The silence that allowed them to be loud. They had no idea. They had absolutely no clue that the credit card currently sitting in the RFID-blocked pocket of my sensible tote bag was the only reason they were standing in this terminal. They didn't know that 5 minutes from now, I would make a decision based not on emotion, but on a simple accounting principle: cutting your losses. Chapter 2. The red ink. To understand why I didn't scream, why I didn't lunge back at her, you have to understand the ledger. I keep a mental spreadsheet of my life. It's an occupational hazard. For as long as I can remember, the family column has been drowning in red ink. I told myself it was love. I told myself that being the older sister meant absorbing the shockwaves so the family structure wouldn't collapse. But looking back, I wasn't a sister. I was an amortized asset, depreciating with every year I allowed them to use me. Growing up in our cramped apartment in Queens, Bella was the supernova. She was loud, chaotic, and possessed a magnetism that my parents mistook for genius. I was the quiet one, the one who did her homework at the kitchen table while Bella practiced dance routines that required expensive costumes we couldn't afford. If Bella broke a vase, I swept up the shards before Mom got home. If Bella failed a test, I forged the signature or helped her plead her case. I was the fixer. The pattern didn't end when we grew up. It just got more expensive. The flashbacks hit me right there in the terminal. Playing over the sight of Bella, checking her reflection in her phone screen to make sure her mascara hadn't run. I remembered her sweet 16. God, that party. Bella had demanded a my super sweet 16 style bash. Despite Dad being between jobs, she wanted a specific DJ from the city, a guy who charged $3,000 a night. My parents said no, and Bella locked herself in her room for 3 days, threatening to run away. I was 20 years old, working double shifts at a campus coffee shop and saving every penny for my tuition. I couldn't stand the screaming anymore. I went behind their backs, contacted the DJ, and paid him in cash. $3,500, my entire savings for the semester. When the DJ showed up, Bella didn't even ask how. She just screamed in delight, hugged Dad, and told the microphone that she had manifested this. I stood by the punch bowl, serving drinks, calculating how many extra shifts I'd need to pay for my textbooks. Then there was the business venture 2 years ago. Bella had decided she was going to be an entrepreneur. She pitched us Bella's Glow, a line of eco-friendly, aura-cleansing glitter. It was nonsense, but she was so passionate, and Mom was so convinced this was Bella's big break. But they had no capital. Bella came to my apartment, sat on my beige sofa, and cried about how nobody believed in her vision. She needed $6,000 for inventory. Just a loan, she promised. She'd pay me back with interest after the first launch. I wrote the check. I knew better, but I wrote it. She bought the inventory, sure. But she also bought a new wardrobe for the promotional shoot, and hosted a launch party where she gave away most of the product for free to influencers with fewer followers than her. The business folded in 6 weeks. I never saw a dime. When I gently asked about the repayment plan a few months later during Christmas, Mom called me heartless. She's down on her luck, Claire. Why do you have to kick her when she's down? Money isn't everything, but the entry in the ledger that burned the most, the one that was currently fueling the cold fire in my chest, happened just 4 weeks ago. We were at a steakhouse for Dad's 60th birthday. I had organized the dinner, of course. Bella arrived 40 minutes late, ordered the most expensive Cabernet on the list, and then tapped her glass for attention. She stood up, looking radiant and successful, and dropped the bomb. I know things have been tough lately, she said, beaming at Dad. But I wanted to do something special for you, Daddy. For all of us. So, I'm taking us all to the Maldives. My mother gasped, clutching her chest. My father's eyes welled up. The Maldives? Bella, that's thousands of dollars. How? I've been saving. Bella lied, her voice trembling with false humility. My brand partnerships are finally taking off. I want to treat you. First-class accommodation, overwater villas. The works. We leave next month. My parents erupted in praise. Dad bragged to the waiter. Mom started crying, talking about how she knew Bella would make it big. And across the table, Bella looked at me. She didn't look guilty. She looked expectant. She caught my eye, gave a tiny, conspiratorial wink, and mouthed, "Thank you," because earlier that afternoon, she had maxed out my credit card booking the flights and the resort. She had begged me, saying her payment from a sponsor was delayed and she needed to book now to get the deal. She swore the money would be in my account before the credit card bill arrived. I had done it. I had booked the flights, the seaplane transfers, the 2-bedroom water suite, the sunset yacht cruise, all of it. I sat there at that dinner, sipping water, listening to my parents praise Bella for a generosity she had stolen from my bank account. I felt a tightening in my chest, a resentment so heavy I thought the chair would break under it, but I swallowed it. I always swallowed it. I told myself, at least we'll be in the Maldives. At least I'll get a vacation. I was wrong. Standing in Terminal 5, watching the security guards glance over nervously at our commotion, I realized there was no vacation. There was only the transaction, and the account was finally, irrevocably, overdrawn. Make this right. My father's words hung in the stale airport air, heavier than the luggage weighing down my shoulders. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just issued the command, the same standing order I had been following since I was 6 years old. Make this right. Fix Bella's mess. Absorb Bella's chaos. Smooth over the cracks so the family portrait looks pristine. My cheek was radiating heat now, a dull throb that synced with the pounding of my heart. I looked at them. Really looked at them. Bella was sniffling into a tissue, carefully dabbing the corner of her eye so as not to smudge her winged eyeliner. She looked tragic and beautiful. A perfect victim for the audience of strangers, still watching us from the gate seating area. My mother was glaring at me with a mixture of exhaustion and annoyance, checking her watch as if my physical pain was merely an inconvenience to her schedule. "Claire? Did you hear me?" Dad stepped closer, his voice dropping to that low, disappointed register that used to make my stomach turn over. "Apologize to your sister. We have a long flight ahead of us. I don't want tension. Just be the bigger person. And be the bigger person." That was the mantra. The bigger person pays the bail. The bigger person pays the rent. The bigger person swallows the blood in her mouth and smiles. But as I stood there, staring at the man who had taught me to ride a bike and balance a checkbook, something in my brain shifted. It was a click, audible only to me. It was the sound of a switch flipping from maintenance to audit. In my line of work, there is a concept called the sunk cost fallacy. It's the irrational tendency to continue investing in a failing project simply because you've already invested so much. You keep pouring money into a pit, hoping it will eventually turn a profit, terrified to admit that the initial investment is gone forever. I looked at Bella, who was now checking her reflection in the glass of the boarding gate, adjusting her sunglasses. I looked at my parents, who were fussing over her carry-on bag, ignoring me completely. I had invested 29 years in this project. I had invested patience, love, silence, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the return on investment was zero. Actually, it was negative. I was in a deficit of dignity. "I need a minute," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It wasn't shaky. It was flat, hollow. Dad sighed, throwing his hands up. "For Christ's sake, Claire. Boarding starts in 20 minutes. Don't go wandering off to sulk. Just keep her away from me," Bella hissed, finally speaking to me directly. "She's bringing negative energy. I can't have bad vibes before a long-haul flight. It ruins my skin. I just need to use the restroom," I lied. "I'll meet you at the gate." I didn't wait for permission. I turned on my heel and walked away. I forced myself to walk slowly, resisting the urge to run. I could feel their eyes on my back, the weight of their judgment. But I kept moving. I walked past the duty-free shops selling overpriced perfume, past the bars crowded with travelers toasting to their vacations. I found a restroom near the far end of the concourse, one that was relatively empty. I dropped my tote bag on the counter and gripped the cold porcelain of the sink. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked familiar, but changed. There was a red, angry welt rising on her left cheek. Her eyes were wide, but they weren't wet. They were dry. They were calculating. I washed my hands. I watched the water swirl down the drain, taking the last of my hesitation with it. I dried my hands thoroughly with a paper towel. An accountant needs clean hands to handle the books. I picked up my phone. The screen was bright, cheerful, displaying a notification, flight to mail, boarding in 15 minutes. I unlocked the screen and opened my email. I scrolled past the work notifications, past the newsletters, until I found it, the confirmation folder. Reservation number HK9920. 4 passengers. Total cost $18,450. Payment method, Visa ending in 4490. Claire Bennett. I stared at the numbers. Numbers are comforting. They are black and white. They don't gaslight you. They don't slap you. They simply state the truth. And the truth was, I held the receipt. I stepped out of the restroom and found a quiet corner near a bank of vending machines. It was secluded, away from the main thoroughfare. I leaned against the wall, the cold plaster pressing into my blazer. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of airport coffee and floor wax. Then, I dialed the customer service number for the airline. Chapter 4, Liquidation. The hold music was a soft, generic jazz tune. The kind designed to keep you calm while you wait to complain. I listened to the saxophone solo, tapping my foot. Not out of nervousness, but out of a strange, surging adrenaline. It was the feeling I got right before closing a massive audit, the moment you realize the numbers finally align. Thank you for calling Global Airways. This is Marcus. How can I help you today? 2-1. The voice was warm, professional, unsuspecting. Marcus had no idea he was about to become the instrument of my liberation. Hi, Marcus, I said, my voice steady and clear. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm currently at JFK, waiting to board a flight to Mail. I need to make an urgent modification to my reservation. Certainly, Miss Bennett. Let me pull that up for you. Okay. I see it here. A party of 4 traveling to the Maldives. Bennett, 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 and Bennett. What seems to be the problem? Are we looking to upgrade today? I looked down the long hallway of the terminal. In the distance, near Gate 22, I could see the small cluster of my family. They were laughing now. Bella was showing Mom something on her phone. Probably a filtered selfie. Dad was reading a newspaper. They looked relaxed. They looked relieved. The problem me had removed herself, and equilibrium had been restored. They thought the storm had passed. They didn't know the hurricane was just making a phone call. No, Marcus, I said. Not an upgrade. I need to cancel 3 of the tickets. There was a pause on the line. I'm sorry? Did you say cancel 3? Yes. I need to cancel the tickets for Robert Bennett, Susan Bennett, and Bella Bennett. Oh, Marcus sounded confused. Is everything all right? This is a non-refundable fare class, Miss Bennett. If you cancel now, especially this close to boarding, you won't get a cash refund. I know the policy, I said, cutting him off gently. I read the fine print. Since I am the sole purchaser, the value of the cancelled tickets will be converted into a travel credit. Correct? A credit deposited into the account of the cardholder. Me. I could hear the typing on his end. Click, click, click. Yes, that is correct. Since you paid for the entire booking, the credit minus the cancellation fees would go back to your frequent flyer account. It's a significant amount, roughly $12,000 in credit, but the passengers will be off the flight. Do it, I said. Are you sure? Once I confirm this, their boarding passes will be invalid immediately. They won't be able to get on the plane. I am absolutely sure, Marcus. Please process it immediately. Okay, processing now. I waited. The silence on the line was heavy, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel oppressive. It felt like power. I watched my family in the distance. Bella stood up, stretching her arms, looking like she owned the airport. Done, Marcus said. The 3 tickets are cancelled. Your ticket, Claire Bennett, seat 2A, is still valid. The travel credit has been applied to your profile. Is there anything else? No, thank you, Marcus. You've been incredibly helpful. I hung up, my hand wasn't shaking. I didn't stop there. I opened the hotel booking app next. The Maldives Resort, the Overwater Sunset Villa, 2 bedrooms, private pool, butler service. I tapped the call property button. The international ringtone purred in my ear. Good evening, this is the Azure Paradise Resort, Maldives. How may I assist you? A woman with a lilting, melodious voice answered, Hi, this is Claire Bennett. I have a reservation starting tomorrow. Ah, yes, Miss Bennett. The Sunset Family Suite. We have everything prepared for your arrival. Champagne on ice. Actually, there's been a change in plans, I said, watching a janitor slowly push a mop bucket past me. My family won't be joining me, it will just be me. Oh, I am so sorry to hear that. Do you wish to cancel? No, I said. I'm still coming. But I don't need the family suite. Do you have a smaller villa available? Maybe the solo water suite you advertise? The one on the private side of the lagoon? Let me check. Yes, we actually had a cancellation for a solo suite this morning. It is smaller, but very private. It has a jacuzzi instead of the large pool. It is significantly cheaper. That sounds perfect. Please switch me to that room. And the difference in price? Thanks for watching. And don't to this video. I will refund the difference to the card on file immediately. One last thing, I added, staring directly at Bella's distant figure. I booked a private yacht sunset cruise for 4 people on Tuesday. Cancel it. Cancelled. Anything else? No, that will be all. I hung up the phone. I stood there for a moment, letting the reality wash over me. Within 5 minutes, I had dismantled the entire infrastructure of their holiday. I had reclaimed thousands of dollars. I had stripped them of their luxury, their status, and their ride. I looked at the time. Boarding was starting in 2 minutes. I pushed off the wall, smoothed down the front of my blazer, and began the long walk back to gate 22. I didn't walk like a victim anymore. I didn't walk like the sister who gets slapped. I walked like the CEO of a company that had just completed a hostile takeover. I was coming back to them. But I wasn't coming back to apologize. I was coming back to close the account. The walk back to gate 22 felt different. Usually, walking toward my family felt like walking into a strong headwind, exhausting, resistant, requiring a physical brace against the inevitable force of their criticism. But now, the air felt thin and clear. I walked past the Hudson newsstand, past the weary travelers sleeping on their backpacks, and I felt a strange lightness in my chest. It was the weightlessness of a bridge that had finally been burned. When I approached the seating area, they hadn't noticed me yet. They were a tableau of manufactured happiness. Bella was laughing at something on her phone, her head thrown back. The ring light she insisted on carrying everywhere propped up on her carry-on bag. Mom was digging through her purse, likely looking for a mint, and Dad was scrolling through news headlines on his tablet, looking every bit the patriarch of a successful, vacation-bound clan. They looked relaxed. They looked at peace. It was the specific kind of peace that comes from successfully offloading your burdens onto someone else. They thought I was in the bathroom, washing my face, swallowing my pride, and preparing to come back and apologize for getting slapped. They thought the script was still running. I stepped into their line of vision. I didn't sit down. I didn't pick up my bag. I just stood there, clutching my phone and my single passport. I'm heading to the gate now, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through their bubble. Mom looked up, confused, a wrapper crinkling in her hand. What? Wait a minute. Claire. They haven't even called our group yet. Sit down. Don't be so anxious. I'm not anxious, Mom. I'm boarding. Bella lowered her phone, rolling her eyes behind her sunglasses. Oh my God. Are you still being weird? Dad told you to fix your attitude, not run away to the front of the line. We're boarding together. We need a group photo on the jet bridge for my stories. I looked at Bella. I looked at the red mark that was undoubtedly still glowing on my cheek. A mark she hadn't looked at once. I'm not taking a photo with you, Bella. And we aren't boarding together. Jessica narrowed her eyes. What are you talking about? I looked directly at her. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. It was just data now. You aren't going to the Maldives, Bella. Bella laughed. It was a sharp, disbelieving sound, like a bark. What? Stop being dramatic. You're such a buzzkill. Dad, tell her to stop. I lifted my phone, turning the screen toward them. The brightness was turned all the way up. Displayed clearly on the screen was the email notification I had received 30 seconds ago. Reservation update. Cancellation confirmed. Passengers: Robert Bennett, Susan Bennett, Bella Bennett. Status: refunded. To credit. I canceled your tickets, I said. The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. All three of them. The silence that followed was a vacuum. It was sudden and heavy, sucking the air out of the moment. The background noise of the airport seemed to drop away. Dad stood up slowly. His tablet slid off his lap and clattered onto the floor. But he didn't look down. You what? I canceled them, I repeated. The refund has already been processed to my account. Bella snatched the phone from my hand, her acrylic nails clicking frantically against the glass as she tried to read the text. She looked like someone trying to decipher an alien language. No, this isn't real. Why would you do this? I booked this trip. You didn't, I said quietly, taking the phone back from her trembling hand. I did. Every penny. The flights, the seaplane, the villa. It was all on my card. It was all under my name. Mom stood too, her hands shaking. Claire, this isn't funny. It's a cruel joke. Stop it. It's not a joke, Mom. Check with the gate agent if you don't believe me. Or check your own apps. The boarding passes are gone. Dad didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, his fingers fumbling as he tried to open the airline app. I watched his face. I watched the blood drain from it as the screen loaded. I watched the exact moment the error message popped up. Ticket, invalid. His face went gray. He looked up at me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see anger. I saw fear. Chapter 6, The Final Audit. How could you do this? Dad whispered. The boom was gone from his voice. He sounded small. How could I asked back. My voice steady, echoing the cold logic of a courtroom. How many times have you watched her lie and watched me take the blame? How many times have you praised her for things I paid for? Bella was hyperventilating now. Real panic, not the performance art she usually displayed. She grabbed Dad's arm. Daddy, do something! She's stealing my trip! I posted about this. Everyone knows I'm going. Dad turned to the gate agent podium, where a woman was just picking up the microphone to announce boarding. He rushed over, dragging Bella with him. Excuse me. Excuse me. My daughter, he pointed a shaking finger at me. She made a mistake. She canceled our tickets by accident. We need them reinstated. Right now, I stood my ground. I didn't follow them. I watched from 5 feet away as the agent typed into her computer. I watched her frown. I watched her shake her head. I'm sorry, sir, the agent said, her voice amplified slightly by the plexiglass barrier. These tickets were canceled by the primary cardholder. The seats have already been released back into the system. The flight is fully booked. There are no seats available. No! Bella screamed. It was a raw, ugly sound that turned heads 3 gates away. You have to fix it. Make her pay for them again. Make her fix it. Dad turned back to me, his face red again, the familiar rage trying to resurface. Claire, fix this. Pay for them again. I don't care what it costs. Put it on the card. We will discuss your punishment later. But right now, get us on this plane. Punishment? I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. I'm 29 years old, Dad. You don't get to punish me. And I'm not paying. Not anymore. Mom stepped closer, tears gathering in her eyes. She reached out to touch my arm, but I took a step back. Claire, please. We're a family. You can't leave us here. We don't have the money for new tickets. I met her eyes. I know, Mom. That's why I paid in the first place. Because you never have the money. You spend it all trying to make Bella happen. Bella lunged at me then, desperate, grabbing my wrist. Her grip was tight, her nails digging in. I'm sorry, Claire, okay? I wasn't thinking. Just put us back on the flight. I looked down at her hand on my wrist. I gently but firmly peeled her fingers off me, one by one. You're 25, Bella, I said. When do you start thinking? I turned away from them. The gate agent was calling Group 1. That was me. Premium economy. Dad stepped in front of me, blocking my path to the jet bridge. If you walk through that gate, Claire, don't expect to come back. You are disowning this family. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the fear behind the bluster. He wasn't afraid of losing a daughter. He was afraid of losing his safety net. He was afraid of the bills. I'm not the one who left, Dad, I said softly. You left me a long time ago. You just forgot to tell me. I stepped around him. He didn't move to stop me this time. He couldn't. The physics of our relationship had changed. I was no longer the object he could move. I was the immovable force. I walked up to the podium. The agent scanned my phone. Beep. A green light. Have a nice flight, Miss Bennett, she said, giving me a sympathetic look. She had seen the whole thing. Rough day? She asked quietly. Getting better, I smiled. I walked down the jet bridge. The tunnel was cool, and smelled of jet fuel and recycled air. Behind me, I could hear the muffled sounds of Bella screaming, a high-pitched wail of entitlement hitting a wall of reality. I could hear my father arguing with the agent, trying to force the world back into the shape he wanted. But I kept walking. With every step, the noise faded. With every step, the invisible ledger in my head updated. Debit, family obligation. Credit, freedom. Balance, 0. I reached the door of the plane. A flight attendant greeted me with a warm smile. Welcome aboard. Seat 2A is on your left. I found my seat. It was a window seat. I sat down, buckled the belt, and for the first time in 29 years, I didn't check my phone to see if anyone needed me. I simply leaned my head back against the headrest and closed my eyes. The account was closed. The audit was complete. And I was finally in the black. The cabin pressure shifted as the plane began its ascent. A subtle pop in my ears that felt like the world finally snapping back into alignment. Through the thick oval window of seat 2A, I watched the tarmac of JFK fall away. The ground crews became ants. The sprawling terminal where my family was currently imploding became a toy set. And the gray New York skyline dissolved into a haze of distance. For the first hour, I sat rigid, my hands gripping the armrests, waiting for the guilt to hit. I had been conditioned for 29 years to feel guilty for existing, let alone for asserting myself. I waited for the crushing weight of, what have I done, to suffocate me. But it didn't come. Instead, a flight attendant named Sarah appeared with a hot towel and a flute of champagne. For you, Miss Bennett, she said softly. To start your vacation. I took the glass. The bubbles hissed quietly. I looked at my phone lying on the tray table. It was vibrating incessantly, a manic, rhythmic buzzing that threatened to walk it right off the edge. Mom calling, Dad calling, Bella calling, Dad calling again. 47 missed calls in 12 minutes. A stream of text messages rolled down the screen like a ticker tape of panic. Pick up the phone. Claire, this is insane. We are calling the police. You are dead to us. I stared at the notifications. In the past, this barrage would have sent me into a spiral of anxiety. I would have been typing apologies, trying to fix it, trying to bargain. But here, at 30,000 feet, the distance gave me clarity. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because the ATM had walked away with the PIN code. With a slow, deliberate movement, I swiped down the control center. I didn't turn the phone off that would be hiding. Instead, I tapped the little airplane icon. The buzzing stopped instantly. The connection was severed. I was untethered. The flight was a blur of luxury I had paid for but never expected to enjoy. I slept, really slept for 6 hours. A dreamless, heavy sleep that felt like a system reboot. When I woke up, the cabin was dark, illuminated only by the soft blue ambient lighting. I ate a meal that didn't come from a drive-through window. I watched a movie without Bella talking over it. When we began our descent into Valana International Airport in Mail, the view out the window stole the breath from my lungs. The ocean wasn't just blue. It was a spectrum of colors I didn't have names for. Turquoise, indigo, aquamarine, shattered by the white rings of coral atolls. It looked expensive. It looked vast. Stepping off the plane, the humidity hit me like a warm, wet blanket, instantly frizzing my hair. Bella would have hated this. She would have been complaining about her blowout before we even cleared customs. She would have made Dad carry her bag because it was too sticky to exert herself. I walked across the tarmac alone, my backpack slung over one shoulder. A representative from the Azure Paradise Resort was waiting for me holding a sign. It said, MS. Claire Bennett. Just one name. Clean. Simple. Welcome to the Maldives, Miss Bennett, he said, bowing slightly. Your seaplane transfer is ready. You are the only guest arriving on this flight for our resort. So it will be a private transfer. A private seaplane. I almost laughed. If Bella knew this, that her aesthetic trip had turned into my exclusive escape, she would have burned with envy. The Twin Otter plane roared to life, the propellers slicing through the tropical air. As we lifted off the water, leaving the airport island behind, I looked down at the scattering of islands below. Somewhere back in New York, it was freezing rain. Somewhere back in New York, 3 people were likely taking a crowded Uber back to Queens, dragging their luggage and their bruised egos, blaming me for the weather, the traffic, and the state of their lives. But up here, suspended between the sky and the Indian Ocean, the silence in my head was louder than the engine. Chapter 8. The Surplus. The Azure Paradise Resort was a collection of wooden walkways, spiderwebbing out into a lagoon so clear it looked like glass. The boat docked, and the staff were there to greet me with cool towels smelling of lemongrass and ginger. Miss Bennett, the manager, a poised woman named Ashath, stepped forward. We received your call from New York. We have prepared the solo water suite as requested. It's on the sunset side, very secluded. She drove me in a quiet electric buggy down the winding wooden jetty. We passed the massive 2-bedroom family villa I had originally booked. It sat there, imposing and grand, a monument to the vacation that wasn't. I felt a twinge not of regret, but of disbelief that I had almost spent $20,000 to be miserable in a bigger room. My new villa, number 304, was smaller, but it was perfect. It was a sanctuary of teak wood and white linens. The glass doors slid open to a private deck with a jacuzzi bubbling quietly and a ladder leading straight into the ocean. Dinner is served at the Reef Club until 10 p.m., Aishath said, placing my key on the table. Or, since you've had a long journey, room service is available 24 hours. Is there anything else you need? No, I said, looking out at the horizon where the sun was beginning to dip, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. Actually, yes. Do you have a bottle of Cabernet? The expensive kind? Ashath smiled. I will have it sent right over. When she left, the silence rushed back in. It was different from the silence in the airport bathroom. That was the silence of hiding. This was the silence of ownership. I unpacked slowly. I hung my clothes in the closet, just my clothes. Plenty of hangers left over. I put my toiletries in the bathroom. No fighting for counter space with Bella's 18 different serums and hairsprays. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed and bounced a little. Then, I did the thing I had been avoiding. I took my phone out of my bag. I poured myself a glass of the wine that had just arrived, took a deep sip, and turned off airplane mode. The phone convulsed. It took a solid 2 minutes for the backlog of notifications to download. The screen flickered like a strobe light. I treated it like a data set. I didn't read them to feel, I read them to analyze. The grief cycle of the Bennett family. Phase 1. Denial. Timestamp. 2 hours ago. Mom. Claire, pick up. The lady says the tickets are gone. Tell her it's a mistake. Bella. This isn't funny. Where are you hiding? Where are you hiding? Phase 2. Anger. Timestamp. 1 hour ago. Dad. You ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you, you left us stranded like dogs. Bella. I hate you. I actually hate you. You're just jealous because you're old and boring and nobody follows you. You stole my trip. Mom. How could you humiliate your sister like this? She was crying in front of everyone. Phase 3. Bargaining. Timestamp. 30 minutes ago. Dad. Claire. If you book us on the next flight, we can forget this happened. We'll say it was a computer glitch. Just fix it. Mom. We are taking a cab home. It's raining. Your father's back hurts. Please just call us. There was no Phase 4 depression or Phase 5 acceptance yet. They were stuck in a loop of entitlement. I scrolled to the bottom of the thread. The last message was from Bella. Sent 10 minutes ago. Bella, you're going to pay for this. Literally. I put the phone down on the glass coffee table. It looked like a bomb that had failed to detonate. I walked out onto the deck. The wind was warm and smelled of salt. I climbed down the ladder into the ocean. The water was silky, wrapping around me like a second skin. I floated on my back, looking up at the first stars beginning to prick through the twilight. For years, I had operated in a deficit. I gave more time than I had, more money than I earned, more love than I received. I was emotionally over-leveraged, but floating here, thousands of miles away from the people who shared my DNA but not my values, I realized something profound. I wasn't just breaking even. For the first time in my life, I had a surplus. I had silence. I had peace. I had the wine. I had the ocean. And I didn't have to share any of it. I closed my eyes and let the current rock me gently. The audit was done, and the books were finally, beautifully, balanced. The next 5 days were a blur of sensory inputs that I had been starving for. I spent my mornings drinking espresso on my deck, watching baby blacktip sharks patrol the shallow water beneath my feet. I spent my afternoons snorkeling the house reef, surrounded by schools of neon fusiliers that moved in perfect unison, a stark contrast to the chaotic friction of my family. I ate dinner alone at the edge of the ocean. And for the first time in my life, the absence of conversation didn't feel lonely. It felt luxurious. My cheek healed. The red mark faded into a yellowish bruise, and then into nothing, erased by the salt water and the sun. But while the physical mark vanished, the internal shift calcified. It hardened into something permanent, like coral. On my final night, I sat on the net hammock suspended over the water, watching the Milky Way stretch across the sky like spilled sugar. I decided it was time. I had ignored the digital tantrums for a week. I needed to know the damage before I returned to New York. I opened my laptop. The barrage of texts had stopped 2 days ago, replaced by a sullen, heavy silence. But there was one email, sent from my father's Yahoo address, with the subject line, Family Meeting. I clicked it open. I expected rage. I expected threats of disownment. But what I found was something far more insidious. It was a negotiation. Claire. It read, We have had a lot of time to think sitting here in the rain in Queens. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Bella is depressed. We are all hurting. We know you were upset. We know Bella was out of line. She is willing to apologize for the slap, provided you apologize for abandoning us. We are willing to move past this. We are a family. And families forgive. When you get back, We expect you to come for Sunday dinner, so we can discuss the reimbursement plan for the tickets you canceled. We can work out a payment schedule. We love you. I stared at the screen. The reimbursement plan. Even in their apology, they were trying to bill me for the boundaries I had set. They didn't want their daughter back. They wanted their financier back. They wanted the accountant who cooked the books to make them feel rich emotionally and financially. I didn't feel angry. Anger is a hot emotion. It burns energy. What I felt was the cool, clinical detachment of an auditor discovering fraud. I realized then that they would never change. Bella would always be the tragic princess, and my parents would always be her loyal subjects, funding her kingdom with my emotional currency. I hit reply. My fingers hovered over the keys. I didn't write a paragraph. I didn't write a defense. I wrote 2 sentences. There will be no reimbursement. The account is closed. Then, I did something I should have done years ago. I logged into my bank app and removed them as beneficiaries. I logged into the streaming services and changed the passwords. I logged into the family phone plan which I paid for and scheduled a separation of lines for the day I landed. I closed the laptop. When I flew back to New York 2 days later, the city was gray and drizzling, exactly as I had left it. But I walked through Terminal 5 differently. I walked past the spot where Bella had slapped me. I didn't speed up. I didn't flinch. I looked at the spot, acknowledged the ghost of the girl who had stood there taking the abuse, and I left her there. I took a cab back to my apartment. I didn't go to Queens for Sunday dinner. 3 months later, I got a letter. It was a wedding invitation. Bella had found a new guy, someone she'd met online, and they were getting married in 6 months. The theme was tropical paradise. The location was a banquet hall in New Jersey. I didn't RSVP. I didn't send a gift. I didn't send a check. Instead, I took that money, the money for the dress I would have hated, the gift they would have pawned, the bridal shower I would have been forced to organize, and I put it into a high-yield savings account. I named the sub-account the Peace Fund. People ask me if I miss them. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, I miss the idea of them. I miss the family I wanted them to be. But in accounting, you cannot value an asset based on its potential. You have to value it based on its performance. And their performance had been bankrupting me for decades. I've learned that peace doesn't come from keeping quiet. It doesn't come from swallowing the blood in your mouth and smiling for the picture. It comes from knowing your worth, auditing your circle, and being brave enough to cut the losses. My name is Claire Bennett. I am a senior accountant. And for the first time in my life, my net worth is exactly where it should be. If you've ever felt like the ATM of your family, or the one who has to fix everything while everyone else breaks it, I want you to know something. You can resign. You can close the account. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had a moment where you realized you were done? Where you realized the cost was just too high? I read every single one. And if you want more stories about people finally balancing the scales, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't a slap back. It's living well and keeping the receipt.